A large portion of the Jewish nation has returned to its homeland, but the heart, soul, and mind of much of the Jewish nation are still in exile mode. This state of affairs must and will inevitably change. This is Torah Nation TV from Jerusalem, and we are speaking with the head of Machon Shilo, Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Shalom, Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom.
Some people are uncomfortable reciting the bracha Shilo Asani Isha. The claim is made that women are not inferior to men, and realities have changed. Women today can be highly educated, and therefore the bracha is no longer appropriate. What comments does the Rav have?
First of all, we should mention that this bracha Shelo Asani Isha is one of three brachot mentioned in the Tosefta, Masechet Barachot, in Talmud Yerushalmi, Masechet Barachot, in the Talmud Bavli, Masechet Menachot, Daf Mem Gimel. One of three brachot that, according to the halakha, according to those sources that I just mentioned, we are required to say. Just as we are required to say the bracha in the morning when we get dressed, Malbish Arumim, or just as we are required to say the bracha when we wash our face in the morning, Hama'avir Shena Me'inai, etc. In other words, this bracha is not an option, it is a requirement, it is a halakha. Many interpretations and many commentaries have been written regarding this bracha. And I'm not going to mention any of those interpretations or perushim at this point, and the reason is simple, because I do not feel that it is necessary to look for the hidden meaning, as it were, of this bracha, when in fact Hazal tell us exactly why this bracha is recited. It was, after all, Hazal who instituted this bracha, and it is Hazal who therefore are the ones who can tell us what this bracha is referring to and why it should be said. Before I go into that, however, I wish to mention the fact that some people who often have an agenda, sometimes hidden and sometimes not quite so hidden. Some people make the claim, so I have seen it written in certain journals and articles, that this bracha was instituted, was formulated by the famous Tana Rabbi Meir. One could mention parenthetically that our entire Mishnah, our entire Shisha Sidra Mishnah, redacted by Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, is based on the Mishnah of Rabbi Meir. So we're certainly not discussing a minor figure in the world of the Torah. Some have claimed that this bracha was instituted by Rabbi Meir, and that Rabbi Meir had a low opinion of women. I'm not going to go into a discussion of the claims and counterclaims. I will simply state here categorically that there is absolutely no proof whatever, no indication in fact, anywhere in Chazal that Rabbi Meir had a low opinion of women. Certainly there is no indication anywhere that Rabbi Meir had a lower opinion of women as compared to his colleagues, as compared to other Tanaim, other Chachamim at that time. So even if it were true that this bracha was formulated by Rabbi Meir, one would have to, and one suspects or one sees in this bracha some kind of bias against women, one would have to prove this case, and this case has not been proved at all. The source usually referred to is totally misquoted and misinterpreted, and I'm not going to go into that right now because this format, this forum does not really allow for such an in-depth discussion. There is another problem with that argument of those individuals or groups who have raised this claim that Rabbi Meir is behind this bracha Shelo Asani Isha, and therefore because, again, as they claim incorrectly, without any basis, that Rabbi Meir had a low or poor opinion of women and did not respect women, therefore he formulated such a bracha. There is another problem with this thesis, and that is that it wasn't Rabbi Meir who formulated this bracha. It is true that in the Talmud Bavli, in Masechet Menachot Daf Mem Gimel, this bracha is quoted in the name of Rabbi Meir in the printed version of the Talmud as we have it before us. But if one looks at that same page in the printed version of the Talmud as we have it before us, one will see that it says at the bottom of the page that there is another girsa which is more correct, which is Rabbi Yehuda. Says that one says these three brachot, Shelo Asani Isha, Shelo Asani Nochri, Shelo Asani Vur, every day. If one examines this issue more carefully, in greater depth, that is to say, who in fact, in whose name are these brachot quoted, Rabbi Yehuda or Rabbi Meir, one discovers that in the Tosefta that I mentioned before, in the Talmud Yerushalmi Masechet Barachot that I mentioned before, and in a very long list of ancient and accurate sources, including some of the medieval manuscripts that we have of the Talmud Bavli Masechet Menachot, this bracha is quoted in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. There is no doubt whatever that this bracha was not recorded in the name of Rabbi Meir, but rather in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. I stress this point simply to demonstrate how baseless and inaccurate and misleading some of the claims that I have seen, that I have heard regarding this bracha, trying to imply, trying to explain why certain people feel this bracha is improper or problematic, why some people are uncomfortable saying this bracha, and connecting it to a Rabbi Meir who was supposedly in some way not a fan of half of mankind, that is to say, didn't like women. This is simply not true, because A, it wasn't Rabbi Meir whose name is attached or connected to this bracha. B, it's not true because Rabbi Meir was not such a person, and there is no indication of that. So such false scholarship, as it were, such claims based on inaccurate texts and fanciful interpretations of certain other texts in order to concoct an argument against this bracha, such scholarship should and must be rejected out of hand. Now I return to the bracha itself. As I said, it is Chazal who instituted this bracha. I don't think, by the way, that it was Rabbi Yehuda, I should say. That it was Rabbi Yehuda who necessarily first came up with these three brachot, one of which was Shelo Asani Isha. It's very possible this was an ancient masoret, a tradition, and this was said by many chachamim and their students for many generations, maybe centuries before the time of Rabbi Yehuda. But as with many ancient halachot and traditions, it was recorded at the time of the Tanaim in that particular generation in the name of Rabbi Yehuda. The fact is, no one in Chazal is recorded as having disagreed with these formulations, with these three brachot, and therefore it is clear that this is the unanimous opinion of Chazal, that these brachot should be recited. So Chazal instituted these brachot, and it is Chazal who can also explain to us why we should say these brachot. And the fact of the matter is, as I said before, we don't need to look at all kinds of explanations and theories that have been offered. We can simply see what Chazal say, and Chazal tell us precisely why we say the bracha Shelo Asani Isha. As it states explicitly in the Tosefta and in the Talmud Yerushalmi Masechet Barachot, it says there that women are Ha'isha ena hayevet b'miswoth. The intention, of course, is miswoth aseh shazman garaman, as we know from Masechet Kiddushin, that women are patur, women are exempt from many of the positive miswoth which are connected to a certain time or date in the year. For example, the miswah of Sukkah, or for example, the miswah of Tefillin, or for example, the miswah of Lulav, Shofar, etc. Of course, there are many miswoth, many positive commandments which women are required to perform, such as Kiddush on Shabbat, such as eating matzah on Pesach, etc., etc. But there are certainly quite a number of miswoth from which women, according to Jewish tradition, and according to what is recorded in all authoritative works of Chazal, there are many miswoth from which women are patur. And the Tosefta and the Talmud Yerushalmi state that the reason a man says Shelo Asani Isha is because he is giving thanks to Hashem that he is not exempt from those miswoth that women are exempt from. According to the Tosefta, it says, the language is Isha ina hayeved b'mitzvot, and the other source in the Talmud Yerushalmi it says mipnei she'Isha ina mitzuva b'mitzvot. Either way, the intention is very plain. Being required to do a mitzvah, this is another central concept of the Torah, which appears in the Talmud more than once, is Gadol ha-mesueh wa'oseh mimi she'eno mesueh wa'oseh. He who is commanded to do something and does it is greater than he who is not commanded but nevertheless volunteers to do it and goes ahead and does it. You might have thought the opposite, that a person who is not required to do something and nevertheless chooses to do it is to be considered greater or more important than he who is required to do so. But this is not the attitude, this is not the position of the Torah. And that's also not our discussion at the moment, so we won't go into that any further, but that's a fact. Gadol ha-mesueh wa'oseh. He who is commanded to do something is considered greater and more important than he who is not commanded to do something. Therefore, men who are required to do those miswoth aseh, she'azman garaman, those miswoth which are connected to a time or a time of the year or a time of day, from which women are exempt, and we should be, and a normal Jew is happy, feels true joy in his heart that he is able and required to perform the miswoth, that he does not view it as simply a burden or a strain or some unpleasant duty that he must perform, but rather a Jew, a normal Jew who relates to the Torah in a correct and healthy manner, regards the performance of miswoth as something very wonderful and great, as a great zechut, as a great privilege, and therefore someone who is not required to do such a miswah, even if they choose to do it, by the way, is in fact, in terms of that particular miswah, is in less of a favorable position. And therefore it is entirely reasonable that a male give thanks to Hashem, that he is required to perform these miswoth, just as a Jew, any normal Jew, is happy and motivated to say the bracha, Baruch atah Hashem, Shelo Asani nochri, or Shelo Asani roi. In other words, thank you Hashem for making me a Jew, and I'm connected to the Torah, and I'm hayav to do the miswoth, and I'm connected to you Hashem through the Torah, etc. And this is a much greater life to lead than the life of a non-Jew. That is the position of the Torah. There might be some people, and there may even be the very same people in some cases, who are uncomfortable with the bracha Shelo Asani Isha. There may be some people who are not happy with the bracha Shelo Asani Roi or Nochri as well, and not just the bracha Shelo Asani Isha. And I wouldn't be surprised if these points of view often coincide. But the fact of the matter is that the Torah considers the fact that a person is a Jew to be a great piece of luck, as it were, of fortune, a privilege, of the hashgacha of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that this person is Jewish and this person is connected to the Torah, and this person is required to do the miswoth. And a Jew who is required to do miswoth, but fewer miswoth than someone else, is in some ways less fortunate. And that is why a Jewish man, is required to say the bracha Shelo Asani Isha, because he is required to do all the miswoth in the Torah, even those several miswoth in the Torah from which women are exempt. Seeing that Chazal explained to us in such straightforward and uncomplicated terms why we say this bracha, I see no reason to look for any other explanation or homiletic turn of imagination to explain why this bracha is correct or proper, or at least why it's innocuous. That's not the case. A man should feel motivated to say this bracha if he has the correct, healthy, proper attitude towards the Torah. If he's motivated with regards to the Torah and the miswoth, this should be second nature to him. It is only someone who is somehow confused in his attitude towards the Torah. It is only a person who does not understand these things that we have mentioned here who could question why a person should make such a bracha. In conclusion, I would add as follows. This bracha, Shelo Asani Isha, just as the bracha Shelo Asani Nochri, that we mentioned, Shelo Asani Roi, or Shelo Asani Vur, which according to most people today is replaced by Shelo Asani Avid, which we won't go into right now. These brachot are birkot hoda'ah. These are brachot that a person recites, should recite with a full heart, with true and full intention and meaning. In other words, a person should identify with what he's saying and should mean and feel deeply and profoundly what exactly he is saying, why he is thanking Hashem. These are brachot of thanksgiving to Hashem. If a person does not feel motivated to say that bracha because he doesn't feel any such feeling, an upwelling of emotion and of thanksgiving and hoda'ah to Hashem, either for making him a Jew or for making him a Jew who is required to do all the mitzvot more than perhaps another Jew, then I think I would agree that such a person shouldn't make a bracha. In the very same way that if I would say to a Jew who doesn't feel any simcha, any gladness, any rejoicing in his heart, when, shall we say, the Chag of Sukkot comes around, and we all know that at Kiddush, shall we say, the first night of Sukkot, or the first night of Pesach, we say Shehayanu, or when we perform a certain mitzvah, which comes around from time to time, like Tkiyat Shofar, shall we say, on Rosh HaShanah, we say the bracha Shehayanu, because we are expressing the fact that we are happy, and we rejoice in the fact that we are able to perform this mitzvah from the Torah. Shehayanu means we thank you, Hashem, for keeping us alive and bringing us to this time so that we can do this thing. If a person doesn't feel that joy, then I think it's correct to tell such a person, well, until you do, until you somehow learn what it means to be a Jew and what the Torah is about and why it should interest you and why you should be happy and motivated and interested and therefore thankful to Hashem, then you should make that bracha. And the same would be true for many aspects of Judaism. If a person cannot relate to what he's doing, then he shouldn't mouth empty words. But that is simply an indication that this person has lost his way, and such a person needs to ask himself very seriously, why is it that a bracha that all the Jewish nation has been reciting for thousands of years, expressing their thanks, their and their happiness, the gladness that they've felt always in their heart, naturally and intuitively, because of their connection to Hashem, why is it I feel no such joy? Why is my heart, so to speak, dead and unable to feel this joy and feel this sense of gratitude to Hashem? That is the question that a person who finds this bracha to be problematic, that is the question that such a person should ask themselves.
Thank you, Rabbi Bar-Hayim. And a word to our viewers. If you would like to sponsor or dedicate a video interview with Rabbi Bar-Hayim in honor or memory of a loved one, or if you would like to obtain Berkon Nusach Eretz Yisrael, please email us at office@machonshilo.org.